Hey guys, what's up? What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Asia Rugby Live, Real Talk, Real Rugby with me, Rod. And I would like to thank everyone for being with us today, as this topic is really, really important, which is promoting the game. And before I start, I would like to apologize to everyone because my connection today is a bit off and sometimes will be intermittent. So firstly, I would like to apologize to everyone for my connection today. But our guest today, which is from around the world, which is from Taiwan, Chinese Taipei, which is from Japan. The head of World Rugby Communications is in Ireland, and the other one is in India. All of them, their connections are fine, and I think their points are the ones that is important. Okay, the first thing I would like to update you guys, I would like to wish Azli Kasim, which is the talented photographer from Malaysia, our friend, wish him a speedy recovery as he will go a major operation tomorrow. So Azli Kasim, all the best to you, and all of us, the rugby community from Asia and also from around the world, would like to wish you all the best and speedy recovery. And number two, the Asia Rugby Live updates tomorrow. That's on Friday, on Saturday, and on Sunday. Something happening on Asia Rugby Live. So on Friday, we have Champions of Development, which is the guest will be Roy Fernando. And Benjamin Veroyan, our very own Benjamin Veroyan, will be the host for that show. And on Saturday, we have Inside Asia Rugby. That show is being produced by Big Belly Media, our very own Big Belly Media, which is the Bangkit, the rise of Aceh Rugby. So that will be an interesting one. A really good documentary to showcase the rise of Aceh Rugby from what they went through in 2004, the bad disaster of tsunami in 2004. And on Sunday, the legendary Wallaby David Campisi will be on the show. So I think you wouldn't want to miss that. You would want to be with us, Asia Rugby Live. And don't forget to vote, to go on to the World Rugby website and vote for the Men's Sevens Player of the Decade. We have men's 15th try of the decade. We have men's 15th player of the decade, women's 7th player of the decade, women's 15th try of the decade, and women's 15th player of the decade. So all these awards going on. Women's 7th player of the decade, not to forget the sevens format as well. That will be the awards will be World Rugby. Even though there's not much rugby that is happening this year, but the awards is still going on, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss that. And of course, we have our guest today, actively promoting the game. I was with Dominic Rumbles, who is in Dublin, Ireland. Dom, you are the head of communications for Rugby, and of course, you've been in Dublin for 14 years with World Rugby. You've gone through a lot with World Rugby. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thanks very much for having me on and involved. It's great to be a part of this, particularly in a region that's doing great things in terms of both promotion of the game and also obviously the growth of the game as well. So I'm very excited to hear some of the stories that we're going to share today. Just a little bit about myself. As you said, I've been in Dublin for 14 years with World Rugby, previously as the IRB as it was then. My little journey in rugby started from quite a young age. You know, I played rugby at a low enough level, rather badly for a few years, but loved the sport, very much attracted to the values of the sport and how it brought all different people together from different backgrounds, different shapes and sizes to do something together that was quite epic. So, you know, I got very interested. I was interested in writing at the same time. I was a volunteer on the '99 World Cup in Cardiff and in London at Twickenham, which I loved. It was great fun. That got me hooked on wanting to work in rugby. I graduated from university having done a journalism degree, and my first role was actually a rugby correspondent covering international women's rugby for Scrum.com, way back in the late 90s. And then I moved from there, progressed from there to work for Bath Rugby, the professional rugby club based in the southwest of England. Worked with them for 6 years, loved it, learned a lot about media management, interacting with the media, promoting the sport from grassroots to professional level. And then, took the job at World Rugby, and have loved every moment of it. And I think it's coincided with a fantastically exciting time for the game as well. So, that's a little bit about myself.
Dom, you've done a great job, and I'm a huge fan, and I've learned a lot from you indirectly. So keep on the good work, definitely. The second guest I would like to introduce you is she's not from Tokyo, Japan. She's in Tokyo, Japan. She's originally from Wales. So that's Abby Hall, and Abby is the coordinator of social media for Japan Rugby. So Abby, how did you get here? You weren't originally a rugby fan or rugby player yourself, right?
Yeah, when you put it like that, I guess I wasn't originally a rugby fan. I came to Japan nearly 3 years ago, and when I first came here, I was actually an English teacher, but I studied Japanese in university, so my dream was to always come to Japan, no matter what capacity that would have been in. I ended up working at the British Embassy, and we had a Wales rugby event there. I met a couple of people from the Rugby World Cup organising committee, and it sounded really interesting, so I applied. I passed, and since then, Rugby World Cup, gone straight into consulting with JRFU, World Rugby, doing social media predominantly, Japanese and English. So I'm learning as I work, and it's fantastic. I'm really getting into rugby now, but it's a great job, and I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, that's great, Abby. And to our audience out there, if you have any questions in terms of promoting the game, please do ask. And for those, for our Japanese viewers out there, you can ask in Japanese, and Abby can reply in Japanese as well. So that's it. And I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, we have some Japanese fans out there, asking in Japanese. I would love to hear you talking, Japanese, Abby. Okay, the next guest I would like to introduce you from Chinese Taipei, Kwan. Ni hao ma, Kwan. How's how are things with you?
Selamat. Well, things are great here. Taiwan has coped with COVID pretty well. So a bit more about myself first. I'm the international liaison for Chinese Taipei Rugby Football Union. I help with consulting for governance issues and to make sure that our union is compliant and following the guidelines set by World Rugby. And also I help oversee and administer the Get Into Rugby program and make sure that we are also following the proper guidelines. And I'm also involved in the women's rugby in Taiwan here. Yeah. And I also help with consult on issues regarding gender and safeguarding. Yeah.
So Kwan is being modest self. He's actually a hands-on guy with social media, and he's done a great work with Taiwan Rugby Union. So Kwan, don't be too modest, and please share your story with us. I would love to hear your side of the story behind Taiwan social media and how you do stuff. And the last guest for today from India, and he's in Delhi, was it?
Mumbai.
Anand, Mumbai. I'm sorry, Mumbai. And Anand is the head of social media. And so how do you cope up during these hard times, I would say, with the social media of India Rugby?
Firstly, thank you, Rod. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. For us social media people, it's quite a change to be on this side of the camera, so it might take some time getting used to. Also, just want to give a shout out to you and the rest of the Asia Rugby digital team led by Kuram, supported by Ben and everyone else. You all have done a fantastic job with these Asia Rugby live episodes, and it's been amazing to hear these stories of all these men and women from rugby across Asia. So fantastic job, congratulations on that. It's been a time over the last 6 months with sort of no rugby being played. It sort of makes our job as media managers a wee bit harder, where sort of you have to think outside the box and come up with different ways of keeping people engaged and involved in rugby, and sort of keep them informed. So yeah, that's been a challenge, but it's been exciting. We've learned a lot. We've taken risks, and we've come up with some nice ideas and campaigns that we've run on our social media channels. So yeah, it's been a nice journey over the last 6 months. So hopefully we'll be back on field soon and back to the new normal, so to say, and back with live rugby action on field soon.
First of all, thank you for that. You have done a great job the Indian Rugby social media, and we look forward to more contents from you as you are trying to adapt to the new normal. Anyway, first I'd like to ask to Dom, what role does World Rugby play in ensuring rugby is an appealing sport for fans, Dom?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question, and it's probably fundamental to, the engagement strategies that everyone on this webinar and also beyond and listening in sort of grapples with on a daily basis. But I think if you take it a step back, our role is to ensure that the sport is as attractive, appealing as possible from a perspective of young people wanting to engage with it and play. And that means making it as simple and as understandable as possible, whether that's 15s or 7s. And secondly, making it as accessible as possible as well. So no matter where you are, you can either engage with the sport via digital content, social content, and even if you haven't even heard of the sport before, seeing something for the first time, and it's that top of the funnel and introducing people to the sport. But also in terms of understanding where you can play and how you can get involved as well, which is an important part of it. But probably in terms of the product itself, it's making it as safe as possible as well. So the player welfare aspect for us is incredibly important. And, that's not just in terms of, concussion or injury prevention, which is, a well documented journey for us. And as a sport, I think we are leaders, certainly in concussion management. So reassuring, parents in particular that this is a sport that is not only, good for their children to play, but it also, delivers and instills these wonderful kind of, social or, self-esteem benefits, et cetera, which we all know rugby gives us from a values perspective. But I guess now more so than ever in a kind of a COVID environment and coming out of a COVID environment, it's also making sure that we reassure parents, but also governments, etc., that this is a sport that isn't, adversely difficult to play in a COVID period. That myths around, for example, transmission risk of COVID are busted, and the facts are out there. And I think what we've done quite cleverly during the COVID period as an organisation supported by, regional associations and unions is obviously allow the game to be adaptable to suit people's needs. So these temporary kind of COVID-19 law variations that mean that community game can potentially get up and running, quicker and safer from a transmission perspective than perhaps it would have done without those variations. So a lot of our role is providing, I suppose, the platform for people to feel great again about the game, want to engage in the game, share the incredible experiences that they have and the great content and heroes that you can celebrate. So I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, that's inside out. And I think from what you say about COVID-19 and stuff, Kwan can can relate to you directly as what he has done for Taipei Rugby. Can you share with us, Kwan?
Well, I think Taiwan was one of the we began to play rugby again quite early. Over the summer when the situation became stable over here. Of course, the old people began to start playing first because they booked the field early, and and it was all right because it was like an over 70s match. And so, they were really excited to get back on the field again. Yeah, and first they were wearing their gold shorts. If you're wearing gold, you're over 70. If you're wearing red shorts, you're over 60. So if he's wearing gold, you don't tackle him, you just cuddle him, And if he's wearing red, right, you kind of hold him and kind of gently put him down to the ground. Yeah, but then there's no real big worries there because half of them were doctors already. So, healthcare was easily available, and everybody had a great time. And then since the summer, every weekend, I think social rugby has been played. And then we had a national tournament for high school students to get back to have their final match to end their season, properly. And so they could graduate and, move on to a new scholarship and so on and so forth. Yeah. So in Taiwan, life has been pretty normal, and we're really, really grateful that things have come to this. That we're living here, and our government has everything under control. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear that rugby is back in Taiwan, especially during these hard times when everyone is going through it. Going back to promoting the game, Abby, you were doing a lot of stuff for the Rugby World Cup. So what sort of rugby promotion that did you do during the Rugby World Cup 2019?
So in the Rugby World Cup organising committee, I was part of the comms and social media team, but that was specifically with the organising committee and not necessarily with World Rugby. So the accounts that we were using were the fan engagement accounts. We were, instead of promoting the game necessarily, we were kind of promoting to ticket holders and to spectators at fan zones, that kind of thing, just all the necessary information they would need to make it to the match on time. You've got the best part, maybe 400,000 fans coming to Japan. The last thing you want is them to miss a match for any reason. There are a few instances where there's two Yokohama stadiums, for example, and you need to make sure that they're going to the correct one and not ending up late or ending up missing any of the match. So we would put that sort of information out. We had travel guides, we had venue guides, we had Heineken beer apps. We're just trying to make sure that we could give everyone the sort of the omotenashi, the Japanese style service that they expected. And that was everything that I was doing then at the Rugby World Cup through Twitter, through our official channels. It was, instead of rugby promotion, it was more just making sure that our spectators got 100% what they expected out of Japan. And I think that's exactly what happened. They enjoyed their time so much here. So many people have said that they will happily come back to travel, not just watch more rugby again. They want to come back here. Some people say they want to live here, they want to work here. It's just, the results were amazing. So yeah, this speaks for itself.
Yeah, I'm one of the guys confused about which Yokohama stadium. So, but in the end, I ended up at the right Yokohama stadium. So, anyway.
Good example.
Okay. Yeah. Anand, I want to talk to you about rugby in India, since rugby is not a popular sport in India yet. So you have your challenges in promoting the game. So what are your challenges in promoting the game in India?
Well, Rod, every country comes with its own set of challenges and obstacles, and India is no different. I think the challenges become amplified in a country like India because India as a country is just a melting pot of diversity and culture and languages and religion. And I've often said that India is more like a continent than a country of countries, so to say, where each province or state is just poles apart from the very next. So it makes it challenging to operate at a ground level. And also in terms of communication, you're dealing with so many languages, mindsets, beliefs, and perceptions of the game itself, which sort of brings me to my second point of the perception of rugby. As you rightly said, it's a growing sport. It's still in its very nascent stages, and if you go on the road today in India and you ask someone what is rugby, either look at you with a blank face, or they'll sort of say, "Oh yes, it's that game where you have a brown oval ball and you can pass it in any direction, and yes, you have a helmet and a full padded suit, and you beat each other up." So they sort of often confuse it with American football. And on the other side, it's often viewed as an elite game where it was played by the British and the higher societies, sort of say, and that's how the game started in India. But today, it's quite the contrary. You have It's truly a grassroots sport in one third of the country, and it's a grassroots sport because we've done very well at the getting to rugby, and we've reached out to the masses and introduced them to the sport, and we're actually seeing results with the talent coming through from the tier 2, tier 3 cities, from the rural parts of India, and that's another perception we're trying to change, that it's not a male dominated sport. It's truly a sport for all, played by all men, women, boys and girls across India. And another challenge that sport in general faces in India, is not often seen as a viable career option. So Indian parents, and I'm sure across Asia, they face a similar issue where they sort of steer their children down and focus on education, and sport sort of takes a back seat. They see an education as more of a lucrative career option. And lastly, it's all sports are always going to be in the shadows of cricket. Cricket is a religion here in India, and we're sort of all playing catch up and trying to sort of make a mark in India. But the landscape is slowly changing with the success of all these franchise-based leagues. Smaller sports are being given attention that they rightly deserve. So, yes, we are small, but we are growing, and miles to go before we sleep, I guess.
I think Kwan can relate to that as baseball. I mean, rugby is not baseball.
Yes.
Baseball is the number one sport in Chinese Taipei, right? So, Kwan, so what's your challenges in promoting the game in Chinese Taipei?
Well, the first thing, like Anand had said, was that because Taiwan is pretty much a Confucianist society, and which is similar to Japan, that a lot of emphasis is placed on education and scholastic achievement, and so it's quite hard to convince parents to get the children to commit more time to sport, and so from there, we try really hard to actually change the image of rugby. And previously, people think of rugby as something as a violent sport, but actually, rugby. We're trying to change the image of rugby to be fun, to be inclusive. We've all played rugby here, or most of us have played rugby here, and we know how much joy that we can get from this sport. But it's these the stereotypes that we need to slowly dismantle, and to create probably a new culture for new people to come and try out.
Dom, can you relate to that? Where the perspective of people that rugby is violent and stuff like that. So how do you, as in World Rugby, communicate that rugby is not that barbaric? Rugby is actually cool. The values that we promote is actually good for people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and as a contact sport, it is something that particularly in markets where perhaps it's less well known, it's harder to deal with. But I think the key for us is to focus on what this amazing sport gives you and what it does for young people. It's as we've just discussed, it's an inclusive sport. It brings people together from all backgrounds. It instills great life values. It has both physical and mental health benefits as well. And when you look at the research and you look at how it can set you up for life and boost self-esteem, self-confidence, etc., and help you really work as part of a team, which for children is just a fantastic experience, and particularly for young girls as well. Getting into the sport and being involved in that environment. I think that's where we really need to focus our our promotional energy and just what this sport gives you and how it makes you feel. And then the other end of the spectrum, it's what you see, and you're right. Sometimes you see 15-a-side rugby with big collisions, etc. So it's making sure that your content is of the right tone across your platforms and illustrates the joy, the fun, the experience of grassroots and community rugby as just as much as it does the kind of the skill, speed, and athleticism of the elite game. And I think that's where you get your wins. From a World Rugby perspective, we're working very hard to make sure that we are making it clear that the risk in the sport, particularly at community level, is nowhere near what people might imagine it to be. And indeed, if you look at the the injury statistics at community level or child level, it's no different to any other popular sport, whether that be team or individual sport, really. So it is a relatively comparable sport to other popular sports to choose from. So I think on one hand you've got to look at what it gives you, and on the other hand you've got to make sure that the facts are well known as well. And as World Rugby, we try and help our unions with toolkits for both of those areas.
Right. I want to move to.
Can I add something? Can I add something onto that, please?
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes.
Like as Dom was saying, I mean, because World Rugby has had this emphasis on safety, and I think it's given us we managed to get some dividends from that. In that we've managed to, by following World Rugby guidelines, we've managed to make our sport much safer, and it's actually boosted the confidence in our union and in the game in Taiwan, that the game is much more attractive, and young people are we begin to retain more young people into the game now, and it allows us to talk to parents, and that and have confidence in that we're going to take care of them, and we have a comprehensive package. Regarding gender and the safeguarding and all the entire soft package that that rugby can deliver to the community.
Yeah. Amazing.
Anand, I would like to ask you, what are the various social media initiatives that India has launched over the last month, and what has worked well for you guys?
Well, it seems like a lifetime ago when we started all these various social media initiatives, especially in this lockdown period over the last 6 months. And I think with no rugby possible on the field, we were forced to shift our focus to online platforms to sort of keep the community engaged and active. Pre-COVID, we sort of do not realize that, but content is sort of generated automatically around events, around tournaments, around the national team. And when all of that sort of comes to a sudden pause, you're forced to think outside the box and come up with new innovations. And that's, I think we did that quite successfully. And the highlight sort of milestone initiative for us was definitely the Rugby India Tri-Series. We are thinking of ways of keeping that competitive spirit and rivalry alive, and thought of a possibility of an online virtual tournament so we reached out to 32 clubs from across India. We got their buy-in, and we ran a full-fledged tournament online across our social media platforms. And there were 80 games played over a span of 2 weeks, and each match's winner was determined by the number of votes they could accumulate across our platforms. And we didn't really foresee the response, but it was really, really overwhelming. I think over the span of 2 weeks, we received over 600,000 votes, over 1.5 million engagements, and it's really increased our social media footprint by 50 to 60%. So, and the beauty of the Tri-Series was it also gave the participating teams an opportunity to engage with their players, with their community, and sort of build a following for their pages as well. So it sort of trickled down to all the participants. And yeah, so that was one of the initiatives that we ran. In addition, we also did the Rugby India 360 series, which was a live chat, Instagram live chat with various stakeholders from the world of rugby. We had Mr. Brett Gosper, CEO of World Rugby, on our show. We had Benjamin Van Ruin from Asia Rugby. And we also interviewed various coaches and match officials and players, which sort of gave a good insight into the various stakeholders that form the rugby ecosystem. So yes, these are just some of the initiatives that we've sort of run in the last 6 months whilst in lockdown.
Hey man, I have to see you guys are doing a great job. So keep it up. Yeah, please, Mark, please go.
I was just going to just follow up on that. I just wanted to say, listening to both of you there, amazing progress in both unions. But certainly when I look at Asia and look at the potential, it's just really has incredible potential and so much opportunity. And I think, if anything illustrates that, so in the best way possible, it would have been the Rugby World Cup Trophy Tour. 2 years ago now, or a year or so ago, visiting India and having 18,000 children greet the WebLS Cup. It just blows you away how much potential there is there. And when you look at our social media platforms, and particularly during Rugby World Cup, the level of engagement in India is unbelievable. And within that, what's very interesting is that the level of female engagement within that, young females, is very high. So just to say a big congratulations, and also it looks like you've had a big week or so in terms of funding and sponsorship as well in India, which has been incredible to see.
Saying that, Dom, what are your thoughts on Asia Rugby Digital? How are we doing?
Look, incredible. Yes. Again, just to see how much engagement you've had over the shows, and your first season having 330,000 video views, and huge reach of well over 1.5 million. And when you look at it, this is a very social sport. So giving people the opportunity to to discuss what's going on in their union or in their particular field of expertise and share stories has been brilliant. And I think if there's one good thing to have come out of this COVID period, it has been that you can think about things differently. You don't necessarily have to meet in person or organise big forums. Events, webinars, podcasts, Zoom calls with your unions, etc., make a massive difference, and give you an opportunity to connect in a way that perhaps you wouldn't have done before. So no, I think it's incredible, and I think your success really reflects the sheer appetite for rugby in this region, which is testament to Rugby Asia and all of the unions.
Oh, that's great, man, and thank you for that. We, of course, will try to work harder in the future to promote the game. Speaking about working, harder in the game, and of course, Abby, you have been working very hard last year, and of course, this year is a little bit different for you. But moving forward, how does the future looks for you, for your roles or Japan Rugby?
So I think we just have to build on the momentum from last year's Rugby World Cup. I mean, it's quite clear that Japanese public are thirsty for rugby right now. We need to supply that demand. I think ideally we want to promote rugby in Japan, but also we want to increase our Japanese rugby internationally. We want to create fans for Brave Blossoms internationally, Top League internationally. We've got so many Rugby World Cup veterans, even from last year, coming to play in Japan's domestic league in January. It's fantastic. Some really big names will be here playing because they know how fantastic Japan is and how great and the potential for rugby here. They came specifically here and will play next year in Japan's top league. And we just need to make sure that we're promoting Brave Blossom particularly, because I really do think this will be the key to then opening up the game then for also promoting sevens, promoting women's rugby in Japan. I think the one team, this aspect of one team, and the whole Brave Blossoms tagline of one for all for one. I just really do think that this is something that, looking forward to Tokyo 2020, Rugby World Cup 2021, I really do think this is something that we can bring together Japan rugby as one thing. Not sevens as a subsect of 15s, not women's as a subsect of men's. It's all Japan rugby. We're all in this together, and moving forward, we're just trying to build on that. And the key to that will be through social media, digital engagement, and increasing both domestic and international fans with Japanese and English content. So that's what we'll be working on now over the next year.
Yeah, for sure. I think if we talk about the Japan Rugby and top league, there's a huge following from Malaysia, especially because we have a Malaysian representative there, Duke Christian. So yeah. Anyway, now I would like to ask a question from Facebook. We have a question from Facebook. Let us see what's the question. This is to Anand. So please, Anand, if the try series made him lose sleep. So Anand, can you lose sleep?
Yes, definitely. It was a couple of weeks of sleepless nights because we try to give as many opportunities to teams to participate. So we made sure that it wasn't a knockout competition. And from the cup, if you lost, you would play the plate and then bowl and so on. So it was a huge task, and I'm glad that it's over. But it was a really great initiative overall. So yeah, very happy with it.
Oh, great. Awesome for you, man. Okay, the other question I would like to ask Dom, looking forward to the Rugby World Cup 2021 and also the Unstoppable campaign. How is that going for you guys?
Yeah, look, women's rugby is. There goes the jersey, the referee jersey.
It's fine.
It's all right. The Japan's right there.
There we go.
Wales
Japan's
too.
at the front. There we go. Look, really good. I think women's rugby is a massive growth area. For the last 2 years in a row, there have been more young women getting into the sport, participating for the first time than young men. And I think, the focus on women's sport, in particular globally, and there's a lot of appetite from broadcasters, and the focus on women's rugby within your respective unions and regions, and also within World Rugby is making a big difference. And I think, I would term 2021 as being a golden year for women's rugby for two reasons. Obviously, we've got this incredible experience where you have, an Olympic Games and, a Rugby World Cup in the same year. So, never before we're going to have that situation where you're going to have the very best of 15s and the very best of 7s on show globally in the same year. And of course, from an Olympics perspective, it's so important for the sport because it gives you these incredible kind of broadcast platforms. The Olympics is the biggest sporting stage. So the opportunity to showcase the excitement of our sport to audiences who wouldn't normally get to see it, through the world's biggest kind of free-to-air broadcasters is a big deal for us. And we know what a massive difference that made when we debuted in Rio in 2016 with up to 30 million, new fans getting interested in rugby as a result of that, and predominantly young people from emerging rugby markets who are watching the sport for the first time. So women's rugby is huge. And then when you couple with that, the Unstoppable campaign, I think that's incredibly important and powerful as a vehicle because, you can't be what you can't see. And what we need to do with women's rugby and women's sport in general is make it accessible, have strong role models, realistic role models as well, across all spectrums, whether that's grassroots, the elite level, from a board or management or administration perspective, a media perspective, and also think about portrayal when we're doing that. So across all of our digital platforms, are we making sure that, women's rugby is getting, the airtime it deserves? Are we using the right imagery? Are we making it as accessible as possible and appealing as possible to women? So, look, I think we've got a massive year ahead, and I would be incredibly surprised if we didn't come out of 2021 with a massive increase, not just in terms of female participation, but female engagement, viewership, etc. So, things are on track at the moment, despite the uncertain times.
Kwan, you can probably relate to that as Dominic about women's rugby, Unstoppables, and Probably you can talk
Yes.
about the national women's team and promoting it. Yeah.
I'm in charge of the Unstoppables program here in Taiwan, and as being part of the managing team on women's rugby. I'd like to first put a shout out to Anand and Nasa for Indian rugby, because I was the team manager for the under-18 tournament they held in Bhubaneswar in Odisha, and it was the first time our girls felt like superstars. So hats off to you guys there. And for Taiwan, the Unstoppables program, we are able to locate and also like refocus on the people who hold up women's rugby. I'd like to mention one of our Unstoppables. I mean, she was originally a shot putter in athletics, and rugby was the first opportunity for her to join a team sport. And she's someone with ADHD. She has attention deficit, but it's through her her persistent efforts, right, over the period of like 10, 13 years, and to pull back old teammates, and people, life goes on, players drop in and out, and it's through her efforts that we managed to get another team, right, with some from the team that went to Bhubaneswar. And then some of the old school girls, and to go to Jakarta, for the sevens tournament there, and her efforts. I think this Unstoppables program, it's a really good tool for unions to really take stock and to promote the champions of the women's game. Yeah.
Just to add to that.
Oh yes, Dom.
So I was going to say that's an incredibly moving story, and I think from an engagement perspective, the beautiful thing about the Unstoppable stories are that they're real human stories, and people can really connect to those, and they create this kind of deep engagement and empathy as well, which is perhaps more powerful than spectacular action from a tournament. So just again, congratulations to all of you. There've been some amazing examples. I know Asia had 4 in the first kind of World Rugby Unstoppables campaign, and there's going to be more to come in round 2. But some of these stories are just incredibly moving and powerful, and I think very inspiring for young women.
Anand, what type of messaging, vision, or strategy that you have in mind when you guys are trying to promote the game in India?
To be honest, Rod, I think up until last year, our social media strategy was quite reactive in nature. When I say reactive, I mean it was more event and tournament focused around the playing community. And it was this lockdown that has given us a clear vision of where we want to be and the direction that we want to take moving ahead. And I think through our communication, we are trying to address 4 key verticals. We have the first one being the sport itself, which is around the laws of the game, the training and education, the live production of all our matches, our tournaments. The second one, which Dom touched on briefly, is that every sport needs heroes and role models and icons that players can relate to, can look up to, and sort of try to emulate. And we try to do that by sharing the various stories, the inspirational stories that our players have, and it's programs like the Unstoppables that give us a platform to showcase those stories. And so that is something that we are really focusing on. And the third one is how to build a fan base, how to build a community. We're trying to have fan engagement and fan user base generated content. And the fourth, and is very important as well, is no sport can be successful without a certain sense of competition or rivalry. So we try to instill that healthy competition and build that competitive spirit through our campaigns. So I think that is the holistic approach in and the direction that we take in all our communication and messaging.
Saying that, last question is for Dom, and probably this Dom, you can advise the unions, and probably you can advise Abby, Kwan, and also Anand on how unions can increase fan engagement. And also the other question that you can share with us the possible ideas for the build up for Olympics in Tokyo.
Sure. I think first question, actually, it's, the unions can help us. I look at this as being, a partnership. We're all in the same sport working together. You're the people who have the great stories. So it's about, first of all, it's about collaboration and cross promotion and working together on content engagement strategies, which I know, a number of you are doing, and certainly with Marissa's team at World Rugby on the marketing and content side. As we've touched on, a second pillar is people, and great heroes, great role models, but also those inspiring stories that we spoke about with the Unstoppables. Making the most of your tournaments and the footage that you have, and if that content isn't necessarily just from Asia Rugby tournaments or union tournaments, building that partnership with World Rugby and accessing, whether it be Sevens World Series content, some of our archive to help, share some of those magical moments from the sport to get people inspired. And I think the final point, really, just on fan engagement, it's got to be fun. Take some risks as well. Go with the trends, work out what really works for your audience, and test that audience and get feedback from that audience as well. I think sometimes, national federations or international federations grapple with their tone of voice and what's appropriate. In other words, do we have to be the authoritarian kind of regulator kind of voice, or can we just let ourselves go and have some fun with the content? And I think the sport is definitely moving in that direction really well. Certainly see that across some of the unions as well, just some great content being produced. And then I think just on the road to Tokyo 2020, I think it's just showcasing everything that's great around the sport and being ready to capitalize on that kind of spotlight that will be shone on the sport during Tokyo 2020, and making sure that we have the ability to funnel fans into platforms and into unions as well to get involved. So, again, it's going to be around building up our big 7 stars on one side, and, what they will bring to the Olympics and what you're going to see at the Olympics. And secondly, what the Olympics can do for the sport, and making sure that, we work with broadcasters, the rights holding broadcasters for the IOC, to make sure that they are, referencing, our unions and regions and how to get involved in the sport, because many of those broadcasters will be effectively covering rugby, if not for the first time, but it might be only the second time they've done it, the first being Rio 2016. So look out for a lot of fun content along the way, a lot of toolkits for unions as well, providing assets that you can share, and from a regional association perspective as well. But more importantly, we want to hear from you. What are your great stories? And I think, the best content that we have often comes from our unions and regions.
Dom, I'll be waiting for a media pass from you next year.
Abby, we should be asking Abby.
Yes, sir.
Abby's the Tokyo 2020 person.
Yes, sir. What was it, Greg?
No, I'd like to ask Abby a question, if I may. Yeah. Are there any cat videos? Yeah. Are there any cat videos in the pipeline for Japan for World Rugby? Cat videos.
Cat videos.
Yes, that's my holy grail. Yes, that's my holy grail in terms of social media.
Am I missing something? Should there be cat videos? What? I need to write this down.
I'm just wondering. I'm just asking if there's any in the pipeline. Yeah, I mean, Japan is the home of the most famous cat.
This is so
Hello,
true. It's that station master cat, right? It's that guy.
Yeah. It has so much. Yeah. It has a lot of currency in Taiwan. Japanese culture. All the manga and all that. Yeah. So I was wondering, do you have anything of that nature in the pipeline? Yeah, and of course, just for the clicks. Yeah.
In the future, I definitely see that now.
You know what, Kwan? That's a great tip for Abby, and of course, Abby, you can use that. Cats work everywhere, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Maneki Neko
Yeah.
with a rugby ball or something. Like,
Yeah. With a ball there. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Anyway, Dom, Abby, Kwan, and Anand, thank you very much for being on the show today. Sorry about Bashan. It was a bit slow, but I guess you guys understood me, especially.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing. And of course, our viewers understood everything was clear. Thank you very much for the sharing, from Dom, Abby, from Kwan, and also from Anand. Hope to see you guys soon. And thank you from us from Asia Rugby Live. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you guys next week. Till then, I'm Rod. Take care and goodbye.